All right, so today we're diving deep into the life of Frances Sitwell.
Ooh, Frances Sitwell.
Yeah,
She's
I'm excited for this one.
she's not a name that rolls off the tongue for everybody, I know, but she's a fascinating figure, and her story gives us a glimpse into what life was like in Victorian London,
Victorian London.
and particularly the choices women made when society tried to
Yeah, yeah,
put them in a box.
absolutely. And what's so cool about this deep dive is that we're seeing it all through the eyes of a modern author who is currently writing a book about Frances Sitwell.
Wow.
So our source material is a series of excerpts from the author's newsletter called Beyond the Book, and it's chronicling their entire research process.
That's so interesting. It's like
It's so
we get to be little detectives, too. And speaking of mysteries, Frances Sitwell, she's a bit of an enigma herself.
Absolutely.
We know she was connected to some major literary figures, names you'll definitely recognize, but so much of her life remains, shrouded in mystery. That's right. Even basic biographical details like where she spent her final years are still being uncovered.
Wow.
So we are in for a treat. Consider us all armchair detectives here, piecing together her story alongside this modern author.
I love it.
We're going to start with what we do know. Frances was born in Dublin. She married Albert Sitwell, and together they made their way to London in the 1860s.
Okay.
Their first stop was St. Peter's Parsonage in Stepney.
Stepney. Now, that's not exactly the posh London neighborhood that comes to mind when we think of the, like Victorian era and all the
No, not at all.
fancy drawing rooms.
Yeah, you're spot on. Stepney in the 1860s was a bustling working class district,
Really?
a world away from the West End.
Huh?
It was a place of industry and change, and the fact that Frances started her London life there it's really interesting. Remember, this is a woman who will go on to challenge social expectations in really significant ways.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps those early years in Stepney played a role in shaping that independent spirit that we see in her.
It's so interesting to think about the environment and how that might shape a person.
Absolutely.
So what brings them to Stepney in the first place?
Well, the parsonage was connected to Albert's work. He was a clergyman, and he was the one with the official position.
Right.
So Frances's presence there was very much tied to her husband's role.
Yeah.
It was really her entry point into London society.
Her introduction.
Her introduction, a society that she would go on to navigate in increasingly unconventional ways as time went on.
I can't wait to find out more.
Yeah.
It seems like their time in Stepney was just the first chapter in a series of moves that really map out Frances's evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Her life wasn't like a static picture.
No.
It was a constantly shifting landscape.
Exactly. And the Sitwells' next move took them to India and then back to England in 1869. This time, Albert became the vicar of St. Mary the Virgin in Thanet, Kent. It's a coastal region known as the Cathedral of the Marshes.
Oh, wow.
So picture sweeping landscapes, bracing sea air.
Completely different.
So different from the urban clamor of Stepney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about a contrast.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing this rural life
Yeah.
wasn't exactly Frances's cup of tea
Yeah.
because they kept a second home
They did.
in London,
okay.
right?
You were reading between the lines very well.
Okay.
Yes. While Albert was tending to his parish in Thanet, they also kept a residence at 15 Chepstow Place in central London. The author actually found a picture of this house online and even a floor plan.
That's amazing.
It's really cool.
It's like we're using all the tools of today
Yeah, right?
to unlock these secrets from the past.
It's like time travel.
What did they find out about the house?
Well, that's where things get interesting. This Chepstow Place residence wasn't some grand mansion. It actually appears to have been relatively modest, especially for a Victorian family that likely had servants.
Yeah,
So this detail really intrigued the author.
it makes sense.
And I can see why. You have to wonder, how did this household actually function with a family and staff in what sounds like very limited space?
Right. And didn't you mention that Frances and Albert's relationship was kind of on the rocks at this point?
Oh, absolutely. The author actually uses the phrase estranged husband and wife
Oh, wow.
to describe their relationship during this period.
So not good.
Not great. It's really fascinating to think about the dynamics at play within that household, the tension, the separate lives unfolding under one roof.
And like how much those personal struggles might have influenced Frances's decision to eventually strike out on her own.
Exactly.
Because that's what she does.
She does.
And that is where we pick up next time on The Deep Dive.